So when I'm complaining about the stacks of books I have to read for class, there are millions of students sharing just a single textbook between 6 people. When I'm sitting comfortably in my air-conditioned classroom zoned out, there are millions of students listening attentively in a dim classroom with 70 other diligent peers. These are the two powerful images that remain in my memory even after 3 years since my Malawi visit. And Malawi is only one out of the 137 developing countries facing similar challenges. Good evening, everyone. I'm Effie. My personal experience in Malawi gave birth to this project, and my strong connections with local educators, schools, and on-ground program managers will enable the operation of this project.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jess, and as a committee member of the China Rural Education Initiative, I've experienced working virtually with rural schools and delivering quality content to primary students. Inspired by students' motivation to learn, Dreaming addresses 3 key problems in the Malawi education sector: geographic barriers, suboptimal content delivery, and high dropout rates. Students in rural areas cannot access schools due to long distances, and the huge class sizes and lack of educational resources result in poor content delivery. Consequently, high dropout rates occur as students cannot understand the content. Our solution to this is to set up transportable schools operated by our 2 T's, transportation and teachers. We bring mobility, allowing students in the most remote regions of Malawi to gain access to education. In addition, we acquire local teachers to maximize domestic potential and involvement. And we deliver quality education and build long-term student-to-teacher connections through small tailored classes of no more than 25 students. Subsequently, Dreaming will strengthen students' literacy and numeracy abilities and build a strong foundation for future studies. Although there exist many education NGOs in Malawi, like the Cha-Cha Trust and Ripple Africa, their in-school approach reduces the efficiency of their literacy and numeracy programs. Students still suffer from the lack of teacher support, high student-to-teacher ratios, geographic barriers, and are taught by international volunteers. Contrastingly, through Dreaming's transportable schools, we can address all these aforementioned issues. We begin by targeting students in grades 1 to 5 in the Blantyre region of Malawi. Through data we've obtained from 147 schools, we've found that 45% of grade 1 students alone repeat their studies. When asked, what is the biggest challenge you face with education, we received personal responses such as, I'm a slow learner, I need part-time classes after school, and long distance from home. Furthermore, all 18 parents surveyed were willing to give permission for their child to receive extra weekly educational support, of which 12 are willing to pay an average of 110 AUD per semester. As a not-for-profit, we have a mixed revenue stream. To initiate, we would love to receive funds from our kind judges, impact investors, donations, etc. At the same time, we have also considered providing our services to students at a highly subsidized rate. Having parents pay $15 AUD per semester would cover costs of hiring local teachers and their living costs. We are also in contact with private Australian schools to establish long-term fundraising partnerships, holding biannual fundraising events. On average, private Australian schools have 510 students. $1 from each student will equate to $1,020 annually from each partnered school. In Canberra and Melbourne, there are 294 private schools. Securing just 6 of these will be enough to cover annual costs of educational supplies, maintenance fees, and fuel. Dreaming's first step for the next 3 months is to gather first-hand information from students, parents, and teachers. We will also seek to secure a long-term revenue stream through partnerships with private Australian schools and universities. In addition, we will seek vehicle sponsorships to reduce the operational costs. We would be extremely grateful if we could secure $9,700 from our IAC 20 seed pool, which will enable our 2-month pilot programs to run smoothly. We have also taken into consideration of vehicle partnerships, which will reduce our ask to 4,470. Any legal, financial, overseas operational advice and/or connections is also greatly appreciated. Education sparks, builds, and realizes possibilities. Let us be that catalyst and make our shared dream come true. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Can I just get you to reflect on the process that you use to validate this particular problem in Malawi? I'm just really struggling given the last sort of 60 years of government and NGO, the development work that's happened in East Africa, that this is something really needs this level of intervention. So could you maybe just describe some of the people that you've spoken to, or what sort of pilot do you have in mind, or the process that you use to validate this particular problem?
Sure, not a problem. So firstly, this project stemmed from personal experiences. So having been to Malawi, firstly, from personal observation, I kind of observed that the huge class sizes was an issue. This is partly because of the government intervention. Their solutions of fully subsidizing primary education, and given the population base, it has resulted in these huge class sizes. And so upon this personal observation, we then engage with first-hand interviews with local educators. So a prominent person that we interviewed was the education secretary of the CCAP, Church of Central African Presbyterian, who is actually the education director of 147 primary schools. And so from his personal observations and his work in this region, as well as the primary data we've obtained from these 147 primary schools, has validated the sort of the need of having such educational support. And with the objective data we've collected, combined with the more subjective personal responses that we got from our surveys to students from grades 1 to 5, as well as more secondary students, which they call forms. So forms 1 to 4, which is the secondary school students. This is how we sort of validated our value recipients.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So can I just ask a question about the business model? So what's plan B, for example, if you don't raise sufficient funds or if you don't get the sponsorship? How do you actually keep the thing going? Because I mean, there are a lot of privately owned schools around the world that have been done through not-for-profits, and they all struggle.
Yeah, sure.
So what's your plan B?
Yeah, thanks so much. So as a not-for-profit, this is one of the issues that we were struggling throughout the IACT process. Where is the money coming from? So borrowing from a couple of models that are used by local NGOs, we seek to diversify our revenue streams. So obviously having that initial startup fund, this will probably come from endorsements and seed funding through impact investors and possibly this competition. So that's stage 1. Stage 2 and 3, we are seeking to firstly provide our services at a subsidized rate, as mentioned before. So obviously we'll have to do more research into the customer's willingness to pay, but as we've calculated right now, paying $15 per semester would actually enable this this project to run. It will cover some of the operational costs, and also establishing fundraising partnerships with private Australian schools on our side of things. But if private Australian schools are unwilling to engage in such projects, we will then turn to corporates who are seeking to enhance their corporate social responsibility credentials and to form such partnerships. So these Australian streams would be more like a one-off large amount injection, and our smaller scale sort of revenue from the Malawian side of thing will actually be be more sustainable in that sense and continue this project from running.
So you're basing it on how many potential students?
Yeah, so for our pilot programs, we'll have a look here. For our pilot programs, we can actually target 400 students. So the estimate that we gave with our $15 per semester comes from this data. So how we derived this statistic was if we had one vehicle visiting sort of 2 locations, each location we would run 2 classes, and each class we would have 50 students, which makes this full rotation for these 2 locations 100 students. And if we run 4 pilot programs, that would take us to 400 students. So our initial estimate of $15 per semester comes from this data. But obviously with our full rotation, as seen on the screen here, we will visit more locations and increase the number of classes run at each location, which would bring the number of participants up.
Does your business model and your model, in fact, account for the things you'll have to do, like recruit the teachers, recruit the students, because they'll have to change what they're doing? There's a sales process if you want to charge $15. Is that all in it?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's just run out of time, but this is a brief overview of what it costs, what it covers.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut you guys off there, even though it was a really good question.